How important is the sound system to a dubstep DJ?
It's big because the songs ain't as full as, let's say, drum and bass. There's no breaks, so you need the bassline pressure to understand dubstep. Or maybe there's not loads of melodies going through the song. It's all about bassline, so it all makes sense to have a massive system.
Because there's a big difference between how you hear it kind of cold, like on a normal system, or even worse, through your laptop speakers, and what you're hearing properly. There's probably like 2/3 of the record. It's like an iceberg. You know, most of it's underwater, and you're not going to get it unless you're hearing it properly. What kind of sound systems do you really like to play on?
Well, I can tell you a few clubs that I think have the system correct. Forward, which is in Plastic People in London, happens on a Friday.
And there's a big wobbly bass wall, isn't there? One of the walls on the side just turns into a big wall of bass.
It's more that system is just, I don't know how they've got it so correct. Because any music you hear inside there is perfect, but yeah, you do get that wall, that rattling wall.
So where else?
DMZ, they got a system which is at Mass, in Brixton. There's other systems, there's Leeds, Iration Steppers.
Because I was going to ask you about Iration Steppers. The first time I went to the DMZ and Exodus Night in Leeds, it's in the West Indian Centre in Chapeltown, small area of Leeds. I walked past the speaker stack and I actually thought if I was about 3 stone lighter, I would have just been knocked over by that. It's very, very, very powerful. And not only do you get, you know, like the bass rattle you get kind of underneath your rib cage, you kind of also get it behind your cheekbones. It's really incredibly powerful. What's it like to DJ there?
Well, I'm behind, obviously, the decks where the system's not hitting me as hard, but it's still hitting me hard. And I almost feel sorry for people because it's like, I feel like I'm going to be sick constantly, but I don't know. If you like that sort of thing, Leeds is your place, everyone.
I was talking to someone who said they'd gone to DMZ and they'd had a bit of problem with their knee. They had water on their knee. And so they were like on, you know, what you call it, like on crutches. But they really wanted to go, so they went and they had to leave after 10 minutes because it was wobbling all the water in their knee.
I can see that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, you look at like pint glasses and they're all, you can see all the waves, and, you know, the same in wherever there's water, it's moving, isn't it?
Vibrations and nuts. It's like, even on your feet, I think the bass line helps you to get dancing because you're not still, you're always shaking from the bass.
How did you first start?
I was a DJ before I started producing, and I went to see another DJ from dubstep called Hatcher, and he had so many songs I couldn't go in the shop and say, can I have this and that, because they weren't out. And it just made me want to make my own music and have songs that other people couldn't have as well.
Or couldn't have.
or couldn't have, sorry. So then I got home and I begged my mum for something so I could start making music with. And there was just like the solution of music on the PlayStation.
So that's Music 2000?
Music 2000. I think I had one before that, but that was the one where I started putting things onto mini disc and taking it down to the shop.
I think people used to think it was like a joke or not a real thing that people making your kind of music actually did use the PlayStation to make their tunes. Yeah. But you really did, didn't you?
Yeah. It wasn't only me that had. Well, I never released a song out of my PlayStation, but So Solid, I think people know who they are. No?
So Solid crew.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. They released a few songs from their PlayStation. I think I'm not sure about 21 Seconds, but Dilemma, which was a So Solid record. Romeo done a song called Oh No, which came out on labels Rapping My Brain, but there were so many other things around at that time, like even Pulse X, which was a big grime record that came off PlayStation.
But like, what can you do with those things? Do you have to sort of push yourself to do anything good if you're making stuff on the PlayStation, or does it kind of make it easy just because it's what you've got and you can do what you want with it?
Well, to come up with anything that could even be released was really hard. Obviously, the sound, and you have like 8 seconds sampling time, things like that, where you had to put a CD into your PlayStation and hit record for 8 seconds. But other than that, sounds are like claps and really basic things. So to come up with anything good, loads of layering and stuff like that.
I guess like using really shitty stuff like that makes you be good. It's like learning how to DJ on really terrible equipment. It kind of, I suppose, it elevates your skills quite quickly.
Yeah, you almost learn little things like layering, how to make things sound a lot better when you get onto like bigger programs. So obviously you don't take a lot from like, using the Music 2000, but yeah, it does help.
I mean, one thing that maybe might not be clear to people is quite how much experience you've got under your belt at only 21. How old were you when you first started making dubstep or first started making music?
I was sort of 12 coming on 13, so...
And how old were you when you first went to Forward to hear Hatcher play your first record?
I would have been about 14 because my first record came out when I was 15, so yeah. And back then, songs circulated on dub plate for about a year. So yeah, I was about 14.
You and Scream were knocking about together a lot, weren't you? Down at Big Apple record shop. And also understand that the pair of you used to go and sit upstairs in the studio upstairs with Arthur Smith and Danny Harrison, who recorded as Mentor and D&D, among other things. So what was that like?
So it's like, when I first heard their records and the sort of things that they had done, they made loads of popular records at that time. They made Gotta Get Through This with Daniel Bedingfield. They helped on a lot of Miss Dynamite tracks, a lot of Heartless Crew tracks. Even at the moment, they're remixing like Jennifer Lopez. They're constantly doing big records. But then I was almost like starstruck almost. So I was like, anything they told me, it got through to me. Whereas I'm not sure if there was a lot of other people that would have been able to do that, but telling me to keep doing this and keep doing that, and I would actually keep doing it because I'd see what they was doing, and I wanted to get to that stage. So yeah, it was a big part of my life as well.
So can you paint us a picture about what that was like? What would you do? What happened?
Well, got upstairs. Arthur would see me. He would stop what he was doing, and he would start getting out the keyboards. Like, yeah, I think it's a Nord lead, number 3. And he would say to me things like, if you keep making music, one day you'll get a keyboard like this. Because I stood on PlayStation. Stuff like that. So, don't know if it leads much to your imagination, but...
Were you sitting in while they were making sort of their records, you know, like the Mentor records or the D&D stuff? Were you actually sitting there while they were doing them, or would it be more just you'd be there in the downtime?
There were times where I'd come in and I'd see them like in the middle of a mix down, or I never really saw them play riffs. I'm not sure if because they was hiding what they'd done for me or whatever, but I always saw them, like, not always, but I'd come a few times and I see they was using Adam and Heath's desk, giving away things, but I saw them mix, so I slightly picked up little things about EQ and stuff from there.
So I suppose there are two things there. Like, one is sort of having that insight into how studios work and that you can make those things do things for you. And also that must have given you a big sense of connection with the music when you were hearing it out and about, knowing that you'd sort of been there somehow.
Definitely. When you hit the age of where you start going out and doing underage drinking and clubbing, you start off at the clubs where you're going to hear the big music. And every time I'd hear a song, I'd just think to myself, I can hear how it's produced from quite young. And I was almost like, I can see what he's done to do this and do that. And I could go home and sort of learn how he done that sort of thing. So.
When Scream was here last year, he talked about how when he first started making records, he was trying to do his version of, I think it was like LB. Yeah. He was trying to make Dark Garage, but he was basically, he started by trying to almost copy it, and then from that developed his own style. Did you do something similar?
Yeah, I was on the same sort of thing, but I didn't really go for the same people. Like, I was more onto the Wookiee side of things and like the bingo sort of things, the breaker sort of things, but then I just couldn't make it. But then where we was making the songs and then giving them to Hatcher, what we was making was quite different, trying to get to that stage obviously, but he started playing it. So it almost made us, instead of going copying them fully, we went down our own route.